The U.S. sent an amphibious warship, the USS America, near the South China Sea after Chinese vessels harassed the Philippine Sea. The ship docked at the port of Manila for rest and recreation and can accommodate up to 25 aircraft. The commanding officer of the ship, Captain Shockey Snyder, said that their journey through the South China Sea was smooth and safe, and they would treat any forces they might encounter professionally. The USS America's visit to the Philippines happened amid the continued presence of Chinese military vessels in the West Philippine Sea. A high-level meeting is scheduled between American and Philippine officials regarding defense and security cooperation in April. The USS America is set to leave the Philippines on Thursday. The Pentagon said that it will be the first high-level meeting in 7 years between top Philippine and U.S. defense officials and diplomats after the Duterte administration shifted the country's foreign policy away from the United States and pursued close ties with China instead. Acting Defense Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. and U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has agreed to review the full range of maritime cooperation between their countries in the 2+2 meeting in Washington in April. They also discussed plans to conduct joint maritime activities in the South China Sea and Washington's support for oil spill response operations in Oriental Mindoro. Austin noted with particular concern China's swarming of more than 40 vessels, including a Navy ship of the People's Liberation Army around Pagasa, the Two-Island, earlier this month. The USS America is a forward-deployed warship based in Sasebo, Japan, and is part of the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet, whose main objective is to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific region by providing military and humanitarian support to allied countries during crises. The USS America's 4-day travel from Japan to the Philippines was through the Luzon Strait and down the coast to the South China Sea, where the Philippine Coast Guard had reported more than 30 Chinese maritime militia vessels on Pagasa Island and Sabina Shoal within the country's 370-kilometer exclusive economic zone. History of the South China Sea dispute. The South China Sea, SCS, is one of the most contested strategic waters by China and a number of countries in ASEAN. Here is the history of the South China Sea conflict. The South China Sea is seen as waters with abundant natural resources and marine products. The commodity value of these waters is said to reach trillions of dollars. This is what often triggers hot disputes over the SCS by regional countries. The South China Sea consists of an archipelago of mostly small, uninhabited islands. There are at least 6 countries fighting over the South China Sea, namely China, the Philippines, Taiwan, Brunei Darussalam, Malaysia, and Vietnam. These mutual claims make the SCS a sovereignty dispute involving more than 2 parties. The South China Sea is a peripheral sea part of the Pacific Ocean. Geographically, the South China Sea borders Brunei Darussalam, China, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Taiwan, and Vietnam. International Hydrographic Organization, or International Hydrographic Bureau, defines the South China Sea as extending from southwest to northeast, bordering China and Taiwan to the north, the Philippines to the west, Malaysia and Brunei to the west and south, and Vietnam to the east. Referring to Lipai, the South China Sea boundary line resembles the letter U, starting from Toy Waters and ending east of Taiwan waters. The boundary is marked by China with the 9-dash line demarcation, also known as the cow's tongue. Meanwhile, the South China Sea covers 3.685 million square kilometers, citing Britannica. In it, there are many coral reefs, coral islands, atolls, hundreds of small uninhabited islands, and 2 large archipelagos, the Spratly Islands and Paracel Islands, which are claimed by a number of countries. Triggers of the South China Sea dispute. The South China Sea dispute or conflict cannot be separated from the unilateral claims of regional countries, including China, in terms of ownership of the territorial waters. This claim began when China in 1947 produced a map of the SCS with 9 dotted lines and stated that the area included in the circle of the line, including the Spratly and Paracel Islands, was its territory. This map was later reaffirmed when the Communist Party came to power in 1953. This claim is based on ancient Chinese history from the Han Dynasty that ruled in the 2nd century BC to the Ming Dynasty and Qing Dynasty in the 13th century BC. Historical aspects and discoveries are used as reasons for China to maintain its claim to ownership of the South China Sea. In order to maintain its claim over the SCS, China is now aggressively building military facilities, establishing artificial islands, and placing its warships in the waters. China's claim to 90% of the area in the South China Sea, SCS, on historical grounds has sparked tensions among other coastal countries that also claim rights to the area, such as Brunei Darussalam, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam, which are based on the rules of the Exclusive Economic Zone, EZ. On the other hand, Vietnam also claims ownership of the Paracel Islands and the Spratly Islands, which include almost the entire South China Sea. The Philippines also claims part of the SCS area, especially the Spratly Islands, or called the Calayan Islands, and several islands to the west of the Philippines, namely Scarborough Shoal. Meanwhile, Brunei and Malaysia claim the southern part of the SCS and parts of the Spratly Islands. Why is the South China Sea so contested? The South China Sea is a tantalizing region. In general, there are 2 things that are important in the struggle for the SCS region, namely strategic location and economic potential. From a strategic aspect, the waters are one of the crucial commercial gateways for several shipping lines and most of the world's logistics industry. The South China Sea is the fastest route from the Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean, connecting East Asia with India, West Asia, Europe, and Africa. According to the CFR Global Conflict Tracker, the total value of trade crossing the South China Sea region in 2016 reached $3.37 trillion. Global liquefied natural gas trade transiting through the SCS in 2017 amounted to 40% of total world consumption. Furthermore, from its economic potential, the South China Sea is rich in marine resources, although in practice it tends to be overexploited. These waters are also reported to have significant oil and gas reserves. There are an estimated 11 billion barrels of untapped oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas reserves in the SCS. The value of this natural wealth and economic potential is thought to be a factor that exacerbates maritime and territorial disputes between countries in the region. Competing claims of territorial sovereignty over the islands and waters have been the source of the South China Sea conflict and long-standing mutual suspicion.